I got the opportunity to go and work there, but it was kind of going in as an assistant to John Ollier, who is Ed Sheeran's agent.
How many tickets do they sell when they're on tour?
Ed, millions. I think we've sold for this summer. We're up to like 1.5 million tickets. When Jess and I signed RØRY, she just played Camden Assembly, which sold out in minutes. So we went to that show and we're just like, wow. But the fans were so engaged, and I was just like, I haven't seen this. Like, it gave me goosebumps just looking at the crowd.
Do the bands sign with you, or is it just a handshake agreement?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's all on a handshake, essentially. Yeah, they're free to leave you at any point. It's the only part of the music industry that is done like this, but it's just the way it is. I didn't make the rules, and I will not be the one to change them.
Cool. Thank you for sitting down with us. I think the first question then is, how did you get started in music?
Okay, so I've, like most of the industry, am a failed musician. So I started, playing guitar, playing in bands when I was, 11, 12 years old. And when I was about 14, there was nowhere nowhere would book my 14-year-old band. So I started putting on nights at my local venue, which was the Forum in Tunbridge Wells. And just started putting on nights for like me and my friends, and started kind of making a little bit of money out of it. Every time I made money, I would give it to charity. So it was never for business. But then, the more I did that, the more the kind of venue were like, oh, she's actually quite good at this. And they gave me a bit of help with putting nights on. And I remember I booked, I booked Electric Six when I was like 15 years old on this, like, trying to be really professional, but actually just in my school like IT room.
That's insane.
And this was like 20 years ago as well. So it was kind of at the peak of what was their track, High Voltage, when they kind of came out. So yeah, I did a few kind of bookings like that when I was really young, and then I kind of learnt what an agent was doing that. And I was like, as soon as I figured out what an agent was instead of a promoter, I was just like, oh, that looks better.
Were you aware at that point how unusual that was for somebody your age to be booking such big shows?
Yes, actually, yeah, I was. I've always been quite driven in terms of like, if I saw something that I wanted that wasn't available, I've always kind of pushed and worked around or like made it available for myself. So yeah, I was definitely aware that it was not not something that any of my peers were doing. But that didn't stop me, and I asked for help from the kind of the venue staff. And when it got to booking bigger bands, when suddenly I was like, oh God, I've got deposits to pay, and I'm like, I'm like getting my pocket money together. I was just like, okay, I need some help here. So I obviously approached kind of the venues to help me, and they were great. They were so supportive. And that they joined me in kind of co-proing a few shows, which was obviously super helpful. So yeah, I was definitely aware that was unusual.
That's incredible. Like, there's so many people that have spent 10 years trying to get to that position.
Yeah.
And you just nailed it.
It was just a bit of a fluke, though, to be honest. It was just this band are doing well. Let's see if they'll, I noticed that they had an off day on their tour, and we just thought we'd just try it, and it worked. So
that is awesome.
Yeah.
And then, so from that, you discovered what an agent was. And that is that still when you're in school?
Yeah, when I was in school, yeah.
So you were probably the only kid in the country that knew what an agent was.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I mean, when I started, I knew that like live music was my passion. But when you're learning about the music industry, especially when you're young, all you really learn about is like record labels, A&R people, artists, and I think that there's a huge, you don't learn like what everybody in live does and things, but I obviously kind of knew it from early on, but wanted a bit of a broader education into the music industry. So I went to music college, dreams of being a rock star, whatever. And
When did those dreams die? When did you decide you were
when there was conflicts of interest, and I was
okay?
like, okay, do I want to be in the band or booking the band? And I was just, I'm way better at booking it, to be honest. But yeah, when I was at college, I did a few like internships at record labels just so that I had a bit of more of an understanding. I always knew that I was never going to go down that route because, I love listening to music, but that's not what fires me up and kind of makes me excited. So, um, yeah, starting the journey there, did a few kind of internships and then worked my way into paid jobs in live.
Awesome. I love that. It's not often we have someone that's just like, oh yeah, as a kid, I decided this is what I was going to do. And I went and did it. Most people are just sort of like, I wanted to be famous and I bounced around
Yeah, no,
and I ended up doing this.
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I did for a little bit. I
Yeah.
did want to do that, but I think I'm very realistic in my abilities. Let's say, like, I was a fine guitarist, but I was never going to be, I was never going to be like, a successful guitarist. So yeah,
Can you tell us the difference then between an agent and a promoter for people
yeah.
that don't know?
Yeah, so I have to answer this quite a lot when trying to explain what my job is to family members who are just like, you put the events on, right? And I'm like, no, the promoters put the events on. The agents are essentially the liaison between managers and artists and the people who put the events on. So we negotiate the deals, we contract, we make sure everybody gets paid, we make sure everything's announced properly and everyone's represented in the best way possible. We also kind of so our job is it's very strategy based. So we come up with the kind of live strategy to follow along the timeline of release plans and what's going on with the artists and things. So it's a lot of strategy. So we deal with promoters, festival bookers, and they're the people that put the events on, risk the money, uh, and we make sure that everybody's happy, and we make sure that our artists are looked after and represented in the best way possible.
How did you actually become an agent then?
How did I become an agent? Okay, so I have a bit of a strange journey with this actually. So when I started working in agencies, I started out in electronic, which is not my personal taste at all. But I was just like, look, let's get in, let's learn. I did that for about 3 years, and then I was offered a job at a live agency, which was working with a load of metal bands, which was so up my street. I got to work on Dillinger Escape Plan, Periphery, Meshuggah, and that for me was the most exciting thing ever. So I started there as an assistant and a junior agent, and almost as soon as I'd started, I mean, I'd been booking tours for local bands for years, but almost as soon as I started, my boss was just like, "Hey, can you help me do this?" And I was like, I'm just a yes person. I was just like, "Yeah, I'll do that. I can do that." So I think I ended the first artists that I ended up working on were Psylosis and Tesseract. So I just sort of started getting involved. To start with, it was just, this date needs filling. Could you find something for that? And it was just kind of giving me a bit of a taste of that. I quite quickly kind of picked it up and started working on a few more artists. And I did that for a couple of years, and then I took a little bit of a step away, went and worked in venues for a little bit. So I managed a venue in Brighton, and after 5-6 years of doing that, I got the opportunity to go and work at CAA. And I was just like, I'd love to get back into that again. And it would be cool to kind of experience what that is like, working in this kind of big corporate machine, essentially. So yeah, I got the opportunity to go and work there. But it was kind of going in as an assistant to John Ollier, who is Ed Sheeran's agent. And I was just like, it's not often that like that opportunity is going to come up where you get to learn how to work on stadium shows.
How did that opportunity come up?
John and I had met each other at one of the record label internships that I'd done when I was 18. We were both interns, and we just got on really well. I think we were both smoking at the time, so maybe we would just go out and have cigarette breaks and just chat to each other, and we just got on really well and always kind of stayed in touch. The next job that he got from that internship was he started working at Helter Skelter and quite quickly kind of worked his way up through the ranks of that. And I was just like, oh, this guy that I did an internship with is like Ed Sheeran's agent now. I was like, how cool is that? We just kind of stayed in touch and kept bumping into each other at awards and stuff. We bumped into each other at Great Escape Festival 10 years ago now. And he was just like, hey, I'm looking for someone to come and work with me. Do you want to do it? And I was just like, this is a great opportunity. And I took it, even though it was a step back for me, but it was a learning opportunity, and I was fully going to embrace that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's an important thing for people to take away, is that like sometimes that opportunity to learn something new, especially like if it's something that's you want to do or adjacent, is like mega important. Hey guys, sorry to interrupt the podcast, but if you're enjoying it, please give us a rate and a review on Spotify or Apple. If you're watching us on YouTube, please give us a subscribe. It really, really helps the channel knowing that we've got the subscribers and people are listening and rating and reviewing it. It'll help us keep booking more guests and doing more podcasts. So do us that one little favor and we'll be able to keep booking more people and keep doing more episodes. Back to it. What is the difference in the day-to-day between an agent and being an assistant agent?
Yeah, so being an assistant is, you're kind of, the things that you're doing are sort of dictated to you almost by your boss. You've got this list of tours that your boss has booked for you to work on, and you work on the work that is given to you. So it's quite reactive, I would say, whereas agent work is very proactive. So you're out there, you're the one that's driving the business, you're the one that is going out there finding the offers, on the phone, hustling, trying to make things happen, taking meetings, getting to know people. But they're very, very linked, and in my opinion, it's very much a team effort. Like, an agent is only as good as their assistant, and there are so many assistants in the business that just go unlooked at because they're just so solid and so good at their jobs that they just miss out on opportunities.
Are the assistants just paid a salary?
Yeah, assistants are paid a salary, yep. If you've got a nice boss, they might give you a little bonus, but
Is an agent then like salary plus a bonus or commission or something?
Yeah,
like that?
I mean, each agency is kind of set up slightly differently, but yeah, you'll be on a kind of base level salary with plus commission.
Were there any sort of like personal standout moments at CAA where you just couldn't believe what you were doing?
There are some personal standout moments, but some of them I probably can't talk about just because they're policy ones that I worked on to get changed. So I wouldn't. I don't know. I don't know if I can really talk about them, but I made some good changes with the help of a couple of colleagues of mine, which I was really, really proud of.
Was that in the business or?
Yeah, in the business kind of background. Yeah.
Sorry, as in CAA, or as in like the greater?
In CAA,
Yeah, okay.
within the company. Which I'm really, really proud of. I worked really, really hard with a member of our HR team, and we made some really positive changes which will impact some people's lives in a really good way. So I feel really, really proud about some of the things that happened when I was there, for sure.
How come you decided to leave?
So I left CAA in 2019, end of 2019, basically. John Ollier, who I worked with for 5.5 years at CAA, left during the pandemic to start his own company up. And, him and I had worked together for a long time. We worked really well together. We trust each other completely. And he, when he left, my role at CAA was then redundant. And he phoned me and was like, "You're the first phone call I'm making as part of this new company. Please come and join me and help me start this company going." So of course I was like, "Yes, yeah, of course I will join you." And yeah, I kind of went in. He's very much the like CEO. He's very hands-on with the company, but I'm his right hand. I kind of, I know how to do everything at the company. I do HR, a bit of accounts, a bit of IT, a bit of office management. I do everything to kind of support him in the running of the business. And yeah, so he asked me to come and join him, and I said yes.
Is it sort of like running a big indie?
It is, yeah, I mean, there's sort of 21 of us in our office now. So it's definitely, we've grown a lot in the last 4 years, from just me and John in an office to now there's 20 odd of us. And we've got a US office as well. So yeah, it is, yeah, it's very fast paced and, yeah, like everybody in this industry, very busy,
What's the sort of difference then now? Because you're a full-blown agent in your own right. Are you still acting as assistant agent on things like Ed Sheeran?
So I'm very involved in the Ed project. I've been working on it for 10 years now. And John is obviously the kind of lead agent on it, but I'm the junior agent on it. And there's a lot of stuff that I do on that project as well. I'm very, very involved. There's we've been working together for so long that things that he misses, I catch. Like we don't let nothing falls through the gaps on Ed. So yeah, I do still work on Ed with John, but I have a roster of clients of my own, as well as kind of general managing the company as well. So yeah.
Is it different when you've got something as big as Ed Sheeran, where you're creating the strategy when they're at a smaller level? Are you still doing that at that giant stadium level, or is it just sort of like, this is so big there isn't a strategy, it's just like he wants to play a show?
Yeah, well, there's very much still strategy in play for Ed. Yeah, he's constantly kind of releasing music, and we follow release plans and markets that haven't been hit for a while. Yeah, John very much leads on the strategy for Ed for sure. But there's, yeah, I know it feels like it's a never ending, but it keeps releasing albums that people love. So, we book the tours.
On the other bands that you've got on your roster, how do you go about finding bands and deciding to work with them?
Yeah. To be honest, a lot of it is me being fans of bands. I love to work on bands that I love. Like all the bands that I work on, I think they are like the best at what they do. A lot of our job is, we're selling artists essentially, and I cannot lie. So if if I don't believe that an artist is the best at what they do, you can see it. You can hear it in my voice. So yeah, I have to really believe that they're the best. I do a bit of, I do a bit of like looking for new artists, but a lot of it is, relationships with labels, with managers, and then you get the odd thing that you do a good job on an artist, and people will start going, oh, I wonder who's, this person's got a really good live plot. I wonder who their agent is, and then you just people hit you up and things. So it's all about your reputation and how you work on things. I think that.
Do you make a lot of decisions on whether you work with someone based on the sort of ticket sales they can sell?
It definitely it definitely plays a part of what you're looking for. I think, you have to be careful about having too many artists that are the same size and the same sort of sounding artists. So, if I had 3 artists that were at 1,000 cap level, I would maybe be a bit careful about adding another one. Um, and in the same vein, that if I've already got sort of 4 or 5 artists that are like new ones that I need to pitch for lots of supports, I probably wouldn't take on any more smaller developing artists, just because I want to do a really good job on the ones that I've got. And that's not everybody's strategy. There's a lot of other agents that kind of do have a lot of artists. And it's just not how my brain can work. Like, I would rather do a really, really good job on 15 artists than have 40 artists on my roster and them not get the attention that they need. So you've got to, the balance is essential.
If you've got too many that are at the same level, does that just mean they're all competing for the same thing?
Yeah, basically. And then you end up with artists that are like, well, have they got that? I mean, there's a thing about that at the moment. Everybody is comparing themselves, but like, if they're comparing themselves to somebody else that's on your roster and they feel like, this artist is getting more slots than me, why is that? And most of the time it's in fact all of the time it's never going to be because I've pitched this one more. It's like, well, actually they wanted to book this one because maybe maybe it fits the slot a little bit better. Maybe maybe they're looking for something else, or things like that. So
do the bands sign with you, or is it just a handshake agreement?
Yeah, it's a good question. Agents, it's all on a handshake, essentially. Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of paperwork that we have to issue, but they're free to leave you at any point. To have conversations with other people.
Why do you not want to sign them? I mean, looking at Ed Sheeran as the obvious example, if he decided to leave, presumably that would be quite bad for the whole agency. Why would you not want to lock somebody in?
It's just how this side of the industry works. It's the only part of the music industry that is done like this, but it's just the way it is. I didn't make the rules, and I will not be the one to change them.
Do you get it a lot then when there's a band that just decides to up and leave?
It does happen, yeah. I mean, yeah, it does happen. People leave, and people leave other people. It does happen. They move around a lot. I think there's a lot of, especially I noticed a huge amount of shift kind of a couple of years after the pandemic. Everybody, when we all came back, everyone had that mad year of like, right, every artist that's been locked away for 2 years wants to tour. And there was like 1 year where it was impossible to get any festival slots because like every artist you've ever heard of wanted to be touring. So there was a lot of shifting and movement at that point, and it ebbs and flows. You might get a year where you lose an artist, but you gain another 4. It's just the nature of the business, and you see it at all levels.
Is it all down then to the personal relationship? Because you see agents move agencies and their roster sort of goes with them.
Yeah, there's definitely it's obviously definitely really good to have a good personal relationship with your artists, with your managers. But I think the most, like, a really important part of it is to do a really good job. A lot of a lot of people kind of comment on like, oh, it's really easy to get hold of you. You answer your emails, kind of thing, which, that will always be the case. The case with me, I'm quite efficient, and I don't like to leave people hanging, but that's kind of part of how I run my business, is that I intentionally don't have a huge amount of artists for that reason, because my brain can't handle that much. So yeah, I think that there is something really important to be said about just doing a really good job, and then it's undeniable. Like, people aren't going to leave you if you're doing an incredible job. Whereas also, if you have that really strong personal relationships with your artists, which I do on so many of them, it stings so much more if they go. If they leave you, it's like, oh, it hurts anyway, because it obviously, that rejection thing, it hurts. But like, if you've got that kind of real personal, like almost family, like friend relationship with your artists, and they leave you, it really stings.
Are there any particular ones that hurt when?
To be honest, I shouldn't say it, touch wood. I'm really fortunate in that, like, I haven't lost that many artists at all. But I've seen kind of other agents just be like devastated when they've lost artists. Obviously, it's on a financially, you're losing some of your income, and you're losing something that you've put a lot of time and effort into. You're talking about your artists all the time, so like, you put so much of yourself into building these artists' careers, and then maybe one day when you're not expecting it, they're just like, oh yeah, we're actually just gonna go and work with someone else, and you're like, cool. Okay.
Did most of the ones follow you to One Fiinix when you moved?
Yeah, I think there was only one or two artists that stayed behind at CAA, which I don't blame anybody for doing that, because we were starting something new. We were kind of going away from what we had sold them as the, like, hey, we can do all this. There's brand partnerships, there's movies, there's the big corporate pitch, which we have a different offering. We're an independent agency. We work really hard, and our standards are incredibly high. We do a brilliant job. But if you want a kind of 360, like, you want acting, then we're not the ones.
How important to the agent is the agency that they're a part of?
I think it's really important. I think you've got to get the cultural fit has got to be there. For me, like, I loved my time at CAA, but I never saw myself culturally being part of a corporation like that. I like the human side of work as well. And I just don't think you get as much of that when you're working in a company that's got 3,000 employees. There's no way that, the CEO doesn't have a clue who you are. So I think that the cultural fit is really, really important. Definitely. And there are also different ways of how you want to work. The kind of, the William Morris, the UTAs, the CA, the big ones. There are, the kind of the international offices get sort of fed a lot of artists through the US. So the US agent will sign something worldwide, and then they'll assign it to an international agent to kind of book the rest of the world. So there's real benefits in that, because you'll get to work on clients that you wouldn't have any chance of kind of getting anywhere near, almost. So there are benefits to it, but it's then there's also for me, there's a balance that I think is really important.
On the other side of that then, how do you go about it if you book somebody, or you take on a client and they don't have a US agent? If you don't have a US counterpart, how does that progress?
Yeah, so there are a lot of really incredible US agents that we have relationships with. Um, and generally, if you're kind of working in a style of music, there's a small pool of those people that you'll know well, and we'll pass artists. I might recommend X agent at this agency, and they might say, oh, they're looking for an agent too. So, yeah, it's similar, but we just don't work for the same company. Yeah, if that makes sense.
What sort of level, this might be a stupid question, what sort of level does a band need to be before they can sort of like pick and choose the agent they get to go with, other than just being like desperately grateful that somebody wants to work with them?
I think it depends. If the artists have got, you'll get artists that just have a little bit of a buzz on them. And then I think I remember being at a show maybe like 3 years ago. I flew up to Glasgow to go and see this band who were having a real moment. They'd sold out every little tiny show that they'd done, and I went up to that show, and there was like 4 other agents from various agencies there, and this band were on selling like 80 tickets in Glasgow, kind of thing. So um, it depends. Like there are like the hot acts like that who, you'll get people fighting over. And then there are brands going around that can sell 500 tickets, 600 tickets, who everyone's like, I don't know. It's it very much depends on the artist, on the team around them as well, because a band can be incredible if they've got a manager that you don't want to work with, or if they haven't got a manager, or they're um, unsigned, and there's various kind of things to consider with that.
What are the key things that you're looking for if you're like checking those boxes?
For me, I would look for a manager that I really like working with. You're going to be dealing with that person day in, day out. You need to be able to have a good working relationship with them. So yeah, I look for a good manager. I look for a band that I fully believe in. I would also try and look for something that I don't already have on my roster. So yeah, that's important as well. It would, you need to have a manager that has got good drive and vision for what the project is, and a really clear idea of like, okay, we're releasing this album here, this is what's going on, timelines like that. It doesn't always necessarily to have to be signed. I've got a few artists are unsigned that do incredibly well, but they've got strong leadership, or the artist is very, very strong on what they want. I think it's all about the team around it.
So what should the artist be looking for when they're looking, even if they don't stand a chance of getting the agents, but like they're looking to put their team together, they're hoping to get the manager and they're hoping to get the agents, what should they be looking at as to who they should be pursuing?
What I personally would do is I would find an artist that I think is booked really well. So, I would go, God, they're on all those festivals this year, and that tour's sold out, and they've got another one. They've got a really cool tour support, and I wonder who's doing that. That's where my brain would go if I was thinking I'm
An
an
artist at the
artist.
same level as them.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Or I would kind of go and look at people's rosters and be like, what kind of roster do I want to be on? What other artists do I want to be associated with? What kind of human do I want to represent me? I've got a lot of non-male artists. I've got a lot of queer artists, and they're like, we are fed up of working with straight white men. So they're looking for something different, and I embrace that and welcome it. And my roster is like, as I said, kind of predominantly non-male, and I am really proud of that, and that's a huge part of kind of who I am as an agent and what I like to represent. I think if you've got to think about who is going to be representing you and who is going to be selling you. So I think that's really important as well.
How does your sort of day-to-day change when you've got a band that sells 500 tickets on tour as opposed to like a band or an artist like Ed Sheeran?
Yeah. A lot of the steps are the same. So you have to do the same things in order to get a show on sale. When you're working on stadiums, the details are so much bigger. So the small things that maybe you wouldn't think of in a 1,000 cap room are everything in a stadium. When you're collecting kind of information for offers, you have to think about what's the production going to be, who's going to pay for that, is the artist going to carry the PA, the stage, the lights. How are we gonna have the audience? They're going to be seated, are they going to be standing? Let's have a look at the seating maps, make sure that everybody's going to be able to see the stage and see the artist on the stage. How are we going to get the artist onto the stage? How does the backstage work? How many dressing rooms do we need, kind of thing. So there's a lot of details that you have to consider when you're kind of booking arenas, stadiums.
Is that the line sort of blurring between your job and the promoter job?
You're working very closely with the promoter for sure. When it comes to doing stadiums, I speak to Ed's promoters every day. I've spoken to them all already to this morning.
How many tickets do they sell when they're on tour?
Ed, like millions. I think we've sold for this summer. We're up to like 1.5 million tickets in Europe. So it's incredible the amount of tickets that you sell. So the attention to detail is there, whatever level that you're working at. But when you start going to arenas and stadiums, just the amount of information that I kind of ask for and look at is way, way bigger. And, where, for example, if you've got a show at Electric Ballroom, you're probably going to have, adverts, you're probably going to have, Facebook, Instagram, stories, maybe an A3 bit of artwork. It's probably like 4 or 5 bits of artwork to look at. When you're doing a stadium, I cannot tell you how many versions of artwork I look at. I literally have like Ed's silhouette ingrained on the back of my eyelids from approving billboard size to this one's going to go round that part of the website and it's going to go, the amount of artwork and radio ads and TV ads that you have to approve is phenomenal. And the volume is just incredible.
Is all that approval on you, so the manager's not having to look at them?
It's a bit of both. The way things work with Ed. Obviously, I've been working on Ed now for 10 years, so the manager kind of trusts my eyes with things like that. So it's definitely a bit of both. But if I tell management, I've checked through all this and this is fine, he's like, yeah, cool.
On the one tour, apparently Ed did, it was record breaking, the highest grossing ever.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to beat that?
I think probably, yeah. I mean, Ed's ticket prices is still really, really reasonable. So, of course, it's definitely going to be possible to beat that. I think that tour was from the Divide tour, which finished in 2022. I think, and I mean Taylor Swift's tour will have grossed more than that for sure, because the ticket price difference is, you can't compare.
Has the sort of process of booking changed with streaming coming in and you're seeing all the streaming numbers? Because there's certain bands that you'd look at their streaming figures and think they were doing huge venues, and then they're actually not, and then vice versa. There's ones that are doing relatively low, but they sell loads of tickets.
Yeah. I don't think it's changed, but it's sometimes it's a good indicator. Sometimes. So if whenever I sign a new act, the first thing I'll do is I ask for all the data. I'm like, right, where can you tell me where, how many streams, what are your top cities, top countries? I look through all the data and it's so useful. But if you've got 600,000 listeners in the UK, you're not selling 600,000 tickets. No way. But if you've got 200,000 in London, that's an indication that you've got fans there. So you should go and play a show. For artists, like I work on RØRY with my colleague Jess, and hers works completely the opposite. So, she'll sell 2,500 tickets in London, 1,000 tickets in Bristol, but there'll be like 30,000 streams in Bristol, and you're just like, how that doesn't add up at all. But the way the fans kind of engage with RØRY, for example, is very, very different to how fans will engage with pop music. So yeah, where you would expect the streams to equal, X amount of ticket sales, it doesn't always work. And sometimes you just have to just try it and see. But I use it as an indicator, the kind of data for streams, for sure.
Using RØRY as the example, because we had her on the podcast, I don't know what it was, a couple months ago. Her ticket sales have doubled like every year since she pretty much started. Is that particularly unusual?
Yes. Yeah, it's very, very unusual.
What would you usually expect the sort of trajectory to go?
Well, I don't know. I mean, so when Jess and I signed RØRY, she just played Camden Assembly, which sold out in minutes. So we went to that show and we're just like, wow. And I mean, obviously the show was incredible, but the fans were so engaged. And I was just like, I haven't seen this. Like, it gave me goosebumps just looking at the crowd. I was like, I haven't seen this level of fan engagement in years. Like, there was a couple of people talking just behind us and everyone was like, shh, we want to listen to what she's saying. Like, it was amazing. But so I would expect the trajectory to be, let's use London as an example. So she did a Camden Assembly show. I would go next show, probably going to do the Underworld. That hopefully that sells out. Maybe you might go up to, Islington Academy, Scala. You kind of creep your way up. But we were just like with RØRY, because that show sold out so quickly. We were just like, right, let's do Islington Academy next. Plus try a few regionals, see how they go. We had no idea that whole tour sold out, and we were just like, wow, okay, this is going good. And then the next step up, we were a little more cautious. We went from 800 capacity to 1,200 capacity in London, and creeped the regionals up again, and that whole tour sold out. And then she started having more kind of moments with the music, and we were just like, okay, right, we'll take a bit more of a leap now. We trust this. We know this is going to do well. And yeah, so the last tour we sold 12,000 tickets. The one before we'd sold 6,000. The one before we sold 3,000. So yeah, it's literally doubled each time, which is incredible. And yeah, what an artist to work on. It's so exciting.
How do you look at growing that to move forward? Do you think, she needs to get arena supports or more tour support, or is it just focus on her because when she headlines, it goes well?
Well, I mean, we wouldn't say no to an arena support for sure if it's the right artist, but we're not going out pushing for anything and everything. If it feels like it's the right fit and something that we want to do, we're like, yeah, we go for it. But it's not like we just see an arena support and we're just like, oh yeah, let's put her in for it. That's not kind of how we've worked that project from the start. It's not just let's chuck her out and see how it goes. It's like, we need to think about this. Does this feel right for Rocks? Does this feel right for us? Is this the right move? I think that the way that we've built Rocks, it's the headline numbers are what is doing it. Her fan base is growing, hugely all the time, and it's so engaged. So I think, yeah, we just have to be clever with the planning of when we do that again. So
when the next headline comes.
Yeah.
With bands in general, how do they get paid?
How do they get paid? So for when bands go out and play a show, a headline show, for example, they'll get a guaranteed fee, which will be, X amount of money, or typically it's like, or 80% of the net box office receipts, which is, the money that is earned from ticket sales after everything's been paid. So that's kind of how it works, really. Yeah.
With a smaller band, if you've got a big band and the festival wants them, how much would you lean on having the leverage of that big band to get your smaller acts onto the festival or on the tour or whatever it is they want?
Yeah, it definitely helps. If you've got a headliner, you can be like, please, can you also book these bands? There are some agents who are quite aggressive with it. But yeah, it definitely helps with leverage. If you've got a headliner of a big tour, sometimes you do have a bit of input as to what the support might be. And not always, but sometimes you do. Sometimes they'll come to you for advice. Sometimes artists are like, no, we want to take our friends out. So yeah, I think there are things that we can do, definitely, to leverage. There are a lot of, this business is a relationships business. If you've signed something new, you can pull some favor slots and things. So it's all about just maintaining good relationships.
If a band doesn't have an agent, do they stand any chance of getting a spot on a tour with an actual national touring band?
Sometimes, yeah. I think, some artists just want to tour with their mates. They want to go out and have a good time for 2-3 weeks, so they'll choose a band that they're friends with. So yeah, definitely, I think you can. Most of the time the promoters will be hopefully looking for somebody that might shift them a few tickets. So if you can prove that you're worth a few tickets, then that helps as well. I think it's really important, if you're starting out as a band, to make good relationships with the people, the promoters that are working locally to you, because we'll often go out to the local promoters and be like, hey, like, we've got this show here, have you got any good locals that will bring 30 people in, because we'd love to fill the room a bit. So I think that maintaining those relationships with the local promoters is really, really important as you're starting out, and that's almost more important than trying to get an agent too early. We talk to those local promoters all the time. If they're like, look, I've got this act that is consistently bringing 50 people to these shows, you should check them out. We do, we listen.
How do those local promoters become friends with you? Like, if you're somebody that's like, I want to put on my show, and you're only just getting into it, how do you start working with agents?
Yeah, that's a good question. I like working with people who are really responsive and just feel professional to work with. I think you can be professional even if you don't really know what you're doing. Everyone starts out not knowing how to do everything. If you pick the right agents, they can they
Could
kind
you give us a list of who the right agents are?
of no. They can kind of help you along a bit. If you've got an artist that wants to go and play in Portsmouth, but you don't know any promoters, and you've got this like 18-year-old kid who's like in the scene and really like involved and wants to do it, like I love that, as long as they're sending me my ticket counts on time, if they're paying their deposits on time, if they're announcing when we tell them to announce, and all their marketing is good and everything is happening as it should. It is a business. We run a business, and it is annoying dealing with people that you're having to chase all the time. So if you can make things easier for agents and do a good job, they remember it. And next time they're going, oh, I need to book a show in Portsmouth. Oh, that person that did that show was actually amazing. I've found some of my like go-to promoters now just from like giving somebody a chance because they were really excited about one of my artists. And now like every time I want to go to like this market, I'm like, oh, that person was really good. I loved working with them. So yeah.
Are there any particular sort of red flags that if you've given someone a chance and they're sort of fucking it up, that puts you off?
Yeah, if they don't pay on time, that's a big red flag. If they disappear and just don't reply to emails for weeks, that's super annoying. If the show's not great and they're not professional, if they turn up to the show, if they're drunk at the show, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just being professional. It's not rocket science to do a good job on things like that, but it is really easy to do a bad job by being unprofessional.
With One Fiinix, has there been any moments in that where you've just been like, this has really fucking worked out? Like, I'm so pleased that I'm here.
Yeah. Honestly, like I just have those moments all the time. I think because I've been quite key in building our team. The human side of our company, I'm so proud of. I think we've got a bunch of people that are hopefully really happy with what they're doing. They're treated well. They're listened to. They're seen. They're heard. And that is so important for me and us as a company. Professionally, like we have come on so far in 4 years. We started off with John and I. Now we've got like 9 agents, 20 staff. Like that growth is incredible. And hopefully we just kind of keep building on that and keep growing, because it's just a really exciting time to be part of the company. There's a few like real amazing show moments that I've been to. Like I flew out to Bangkok last year to go and see some of the Ed shows, which was amazing. Any time that I see one of my artists play a festival for the first time, like that just gives me chills. And because I know how much it means to them. It's just there's so many just really exciting parts of the job.
What are the sort of goals then you've got for you personally and for One Fiinix, like moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to kind of continue to grow my roster. It is growing nicely as it is. I've taken on a bunch of really cool artists this year, which I'm very excited about. And also just kind of carrying on working and doing a really good job on the ones that have been with me for years. I love to trying to get the balance of work life is tough, but like I'm quite strict with a few boundaries that I've got with work and life, and they all seem to be okay. I've got 2 young kids, which is a huge part of my life, and I'm very boundaried with my time with them, which everybody seems to respect, which is great. So yeah, my goals are just like we just keep growing and keep getting bigger. And yeah, just keep doing a great job for the artists, to be honest. That's all I can ask for.
Is there anything you'd like to mention or promote before we wrap up?
I don't know.
On the spot.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have anything to promote. I've just check out all my artists. They're all incredible. They are genuinely all amazing. I've got an amazing roster of artists that I'm incredibly proud of. And I'm also really, really proud of the team that we've built at One-Fiinix Live. So yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking to us. It's been absolutely awesome. And I think it's going to have been really insightful for a lot of people. So really appreciate you being on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you to everyone that's listened. Please follow, rate and review wherever you get podcasts. And if you want to watch us, we're on YouTube. We'll catch you next time. So the Uprawr Mental Health Foundation offers 100% free counselling and mental health services to people like us that love rock alternative music. If you're into pop punk, emo, metal, anything like that, then this is for you. It's 100% free. We have in-person counselling in Birmingham. We have online counselling for the rest of the UK. It's 100% free. There's no catch. Just visit www.uprawrfoundation.org, sign up or ask for some more information. We're here to help people that are just like us. So if you are struggling, let us know.